Divine revelation. Discover the transforming truths of Satan's strategies in God's incredible plan. In the land of Canaan, during the days of the patriarchs, the sun cast its golden light over the fields, and the air was filled with the rich aroma of the harvest. Jacob, a man of faith, pursued the heart of Yahweh, and it was there, amid the lush pastures, that he fathered 12 sons. Among these sons, Joseph stood out as a beacon of his father's favor, clad in a richly ornamented coat of many colors, an outward sign of Jacob's deep affection. "Look, the dreamer comes." His brothers sneered, their hearts aflame with jealousy, for they resented both their father's love and Joseph's divinely inspired dreams. One day, as Joseph roamed the sunlit fields in search of his brothers, he found them atop a barren hill. His coat shimmered like a kaleidoscope, bright against the dull landscape, but innocence masked the impending storm. In a moment of darkness, they seized him, stripped him of his coat, and cast him into a pit, hardening their hearts against the cries of their brother. As they dined not far away, their greed overtook them, and they sold Joseph to a band of Midianite traders heading toward Egypt. Joseph's cries echoed faintly, lost amidst the winds of betrayal. Now, in the foreign land of Egypt, the atmosphere was thick with mischief and temptation, a theater for the adversary's schemes. Joseph endured the harsh reality of slavery, serving in the house of Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. Though surrounded by darkness, the Lord was with him, making all he did prosper. Yet, lurking in the shadows was Potiphar's wife, filled with lustful desires, longing to ensnare the young man. "Come, lie with me," her whispers beckoned. Joseph, steadfast in his devotion to Yahweh, fled from her clutches, but the whispers of betrayal soon followed him, twisting truth into lies. Falsely imprisoned for his virtue, Joseph sank into despair's dark embrace. But even there, he could feel God's presence with him. In the prison's gloom, he interpreted dreams for fellow inmates, giving hope amidst despair. The words of God flowed through him, whispering promises of what would come, a light in a world of broken dreams. Years passed, and Egypt groaned under the weight of famine, shaking its foundations. Pharaoh, troubled by ominous dreams of 7 fat cows consumed by 7 gaunt ones, sought a divine interpreter. At that moment, the cupbearer remembered Joseph, the dreamer who had once foretold his own destiny. Standing before Pharaoh, Joseph shared the truth of the dreams, revealing what God had shown him about the coming abundance and devastation. By divine providence, he ascended to power, orchestrating preparations that would save countless lives. Then came the day when his brothers, driven by hunger, traveled to Egypt in search of sustenance. A confrontation loomed, the air thrummed with unspoken truths and the weight of their sins. Joseph concealed his identity, standing as the sovereign before them, yet a storm brewed within. What fate awaited those who had cast him aside? Would he reveal his true self and the dreams that once united them, or would he let resentment cloud his heart? As the eyes of Joseph searched his brothers, the echoes of his past mingled with the promise of God's incredible plan unfolding. This moment, heavy with emotion and divine purpose, awaited resolution, the tapestry of their destinies woven together, waiting for the hand of God to unveil his glorious design. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As Joseph stood in silence, the memories of his betrayal, the bitterness, and the vision he once held danced before him. Would he show mercy to those who had wronged him? The answer loomed like the distant horizon, where the divine met the earthly, weaving their narratives together in a beautiful, redemptive tapestry. The moment hung like a delicate thread, waiting for the outcome that would transform not only them but the entire lineage of Jacob's seed. What would Joseph choose? Would he embrace the shadows of vengeance or the light of forgiveness? The winds of destiny whispered around him, as God's incredible plan poised to unfold. As Joseph gazed upon the faces of his brothers, recognition pierced him like a lance. The very men who had cast him into a pit, forsaking his cries for mercy, now stood before him, a reflection of his darkest past. Yet, within that darkness, the hand of providence stirred, ushering in an opportunity for grace. The brothers, haunted by guilt, bowed low before him, their hunger compelling them to plead for aid. "Sir, we are come to purchase food," one of them implored, his voice trembling as he dared not meet the gaze of the sovereign. "Our land is barren, and we are men of need." As they spoke, Joseph's heart swelled with tumultuous emotions, the anguish of betrayal intertwined with the longing for his family's love. "From where do you come?" he questioned, disguising his voice to veil his true identity. "Are you indeed all here, or is there another?" His piercing words cut through the atmosphere, igniting the flicker of fear in their hearts. "We are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in Canaan," they confessed, their voices quaking before the ruler. "We are all here, save the youngest, for he remains with our father." Each brother's admission lighted a fire deep within Joseph, stirring the memories of kinship, love, and the bitter pangs of betrayal. "Your words are but deception," he proclaimed, "and you shall be proven true. I shall keep one of you here in custody until your youngest brother is brought forth." The weight of his resolve bore heavily upon them, and Joseph's heart wrestled with the echoes of their past. Could he truly bear the bitter fruit of vengeance born out of their former sins? As Joseph commanded the attendants to imprison Simeon, the brothers lamented in fear, "Truly we are guilty concerning our brother, for we saw the distress of his soul when he begged us, and we would not listen." Their voices tangled with grief, unaware that the very man who had suffered their treachery stood among them, veiled in royal splendor. Days turned to weeks, and as Jacob learned of the scarcity plaguing their home, he was filled with strife over the loss of yet another son. Reluctantly, he acquiesced to hunger's bitter call and instructed his sons to return to Egypt with their youngest, Benjamin. It was a perilous step. The last remnant of Rachel's lineage was now entwined in the web of Joseph's anguish and their father's deepest fears. After much pleading, they departed from Canaan, carrying with them both hope and dread. Upon their arrival, Joseph prepared a feast in honor of them, though his heart wrestled with the truth he bore within. He longed to reveal himself yet feared the weight of truth might overwhelm their fragile spirits. The sight of Benjamin, his mother's son, stirred the deepest chords of his heart, a melody of joy tinged with sorrow. Would he embrace the joy of family or succumb to the shadows of bitterness that once consumed him? As they gathered at the table, he served them lavishly, a prince in disguise concealing his true nature. His eyes lingered on Benjamin, divine blood coursing through their veins, and the intricate tapestry of their lives hung by a thread, awaiting the loom of God's providence to entwine their paths. In that opulent moment, as cups overflowed with blessings, Joseph felt the weight of his decision pressing down. Through the silence of his heart, God's plan unfurled. A miraculous opportunity for reconciliation loomed on the horizon. Could the time have come for healing and redemption? The air thickened with expectation, for what he had endured was not mere fortuity but rather the navigated hand of the Almighty. Would he reveal his identity to his brothers and lead them from pain into restoration, threading their destinies once more together? The scene was set for revelations that would echo through generations, as divinely woven threads prepared to intertwine Joseph's heartbeat in anticipation. Yet, before he could step into the light of revelation, the thoughts of his plight, his trials, and the sovereignty of Almighty God weighed heavy. For in the secret chambers of their covenant, God's promise lingered, and the destiny formed in darkness awaited its unveiling in the light, ready to reveal the depths of love that even betrayal could not shatter. What lay ahead was not just forgiveness but a pathway to a familial reunion bathed in divine grace, a foretaste of a greater plan still in motion, guiding the course of their lives straight to him. As the feast progressed and laughter mingled with the clinking of cups, Joseph's heart wrestled within him. Each glance at his brothers brought forth memories both bitter and sweet. He coveted the return of family affection, yet the chasm of their past loomed like a shadow over the gathering. Thus, as the meal reached its culmination, he summoned the chief steward of his house. "Fill their sacks with grain as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack, but in Benjamin's sack. Place my silver cup, he commanded, his voice steady, yet burdened with intent. The steward nodded, obediently carrying out the charge, unaware of the divine tapestry unfolding. Once the brothers had departed from the palace, heavy sacks on their backs filled with both sustenance and a thinly veiled judgment, Joseph sent his men after them. Pursue them. And when you find them, say, why have you rewarded good with evil? Is not this the cup from which my Lord drinks? The urgency of his orders rippled through the tense air, carrying the weight of an impending revelation. As the men caught up with the brothers at the edge of the city, the accusation rang like thunder. The brothers' hearts sank, their fears manifesting in disbelief. What is this that you have done? They questioned, their voices filled with the ancestral dread of being unjustly accused, a legacy they had fought against since their betrayal of Joseph. With fierce indignation, they protested their innocence. We brought back the money we found in our sacks. How then could we steal from our Lord? With each word, their passion grew, yet the fear of Joseph's wrath loomed, intensifying the trembling in their hearts. Then let it be as we see, said the chief steward. The one in whose possession the cup is found shall be my Lord's servant. With urgency, they opened their sacks one by one, each brother convinced of their innocence until the moment they uncovered the silver chalice within Benjamin's belongings. A great silence fell upon them, the weight of despair crashing over their heads like a raging sea. God has found out the iniquity of your servants, Judah cried, his voice breaking under the strain of years of guilt and unresolved grief. What shall we say? How can we justify ourselves? Joseph watched, the lines of resolve and longing intertwining across his face. The sight of Judah stepping forward, willing to bear the burden on behalf of Benjamin, stirred in him a profound tumult. Could this be evidence of their transformation? Would the arrogance and callousness that once defined their hearts be shadows now illuminated by a grace they scarcely understood? Stay with me, for I cannot send the boy away, Judah pled, invoking the father's heart as he recounted Jacob's love. If he does not return with us, our father's heart will die. At that poignant moment, Joseph's own heart began to soften. Before him lay the choice of retribution or mercy, the path of vengeance or the covenant of reconciliation. The fears of his own soul now mirrored in those before him. The air shifted around them as Joseph, no longer able to restrain himself, ordered everyone out. I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? His voice resonated with a mix of pain and hope as he revealed himself to his brothers, the walls of pretense and bitterness crumbling like dry clay. The brothers froze in shock, their past running like a film before their eyes. Each detail they had buried surfaced anew, and their hearts threw themselves against the prison of guilt they had built. Do not be afraid, Joseph said, foreseeing their dread. For God sent me before you to preserve life. In that profound revelation, the hidden hand of the Almighty unveiled itself before them. The unfolding of God's sovereign plan, whispered through trials and tears, revealed not just the purpose of Joseph's suffering, but the intertwining destinies of an entire family, poised for redemption. With tears streaming down his face, Joseph grasped each brother, words echoing with the tenderness of forgiveness. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. Yet, as the dust settled amidst their embrace, a new mystery loomed. A covenant of restoration had begun, but what greater purpose lay ahead for their lineage, entwined in the prophetic promises of old? The stage was set for a redemption that only God could orchestrate. The next chapter was about to unfold. As Joseph stood before his brothers, the weight of his revelation hung palpably in the air. The astonishment in their eyes mirrored the tide of emotion flooding his own heart. Joseph's voice, quaking yet resolute, broke through the shock. Come near to me, he urged, beckoning them closer. The brothers inched forward, their breaths caught in their throats, fear mingling with an unspoken yearning for forgiveness. Joseph's gaze searched their faces as he spoke once more, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed or angry with yourselves for selling me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. His words poured forth, filled with a divine understanding that transcended human frailty. It was not merely a story of betrayal, but of providence, the very designs of God woven skillfully through every thread of their actions. The brothers, overwhelmed by this declaration, bowed their heads, recognizing that the hand of God had orchestrated events beyond their comprehension. As Joseph continued, he recounted how the famine had spread through the land, necessitating their very presence in Egypt. For these 2 years the famine has been in the land, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. Genesis 45 verses 6-7. In that moment, the sorrow that had long gripped their hearts began to dissolve, replaced by the dawning light of hope. Judah and his brothers exchanged glances, the chains of guilt beginning to fall away. They could not have comprehended the purpose of their actions, yet now, standing before Joseph, they glimpsed a fragment of the divine design. Joseph's love overflowed as he embraced them one by one, tears of healing cascading down their faces. Hearts that had once been hardened by sin now softened under the grace offered in their brother's forgiveness. This was not just a reunion, it was a divine appointment. You see, Joseph said, it was not you who sent me here, but God. Genesis 45 verse 8. His heart swelled with the assurance of God's perfect will being accomplished in the midst of human turmoil. As they stood together, the enormity of their familial bond began to re-emerge, rekindled by the fire of forgiveness. Joseph instructed them to return to their father, bringing forth Benjamin and returning with all that was needed for their sustenance, declaring, "Do not quarrel on the way." Genesis 45 verse 24. He understood well the weight of their history and the power of temptation that might arise once they were apart. They departed with grain supplies and gifts, yet more precious was the knowledge that their brother lived and thrived. As the brothers made the journey back, the promise of reconciliation filled their hearts, mixed with the uncertainty of their father's reaction. Would he believe their words, caught as they were in the web of sorrow and shame? As Jacob's sons approached the homeland, they rehearsed their words, filled with trepidation yet strengthened by divine promise. Joseph is alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Egypt. They declared to Jacob. The old man staggered, his heart not yet ready to embrace the reality that seemed too marvelous to sustain. His spirit was revived when he heard their detailed accounts and beheld the wagons laden with provisions, yet even as joy filled their dwelling, a deeper truth lingered between the lines. For God had not only orchestrated the survival of a family but had set the stage for a nation. In this act of mercy within history, his sovereign plan unfurled a promise whispered to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, brimming with potential. As Jacob's heart reawakened, and the family began to gather, the revelation dawned, the purpose of their trials had not yet reached its crescendo. The journey of Israel was just beginning, each step guiding them closer to the fulfillment of God's promise. What awaited them in Egypt was more than mere survival, it was the prelude to a divine establishment where a nation would be forged through their lineage. Little did they know, the time would come when God's plan would lead them back to the land of promise, crafting a narrative that would reverberate through generations and echo into eternity. The tapestry of their lives was intricately woven, and as they embraced their new role, a new chapter awaited, one filled with trials and triumphs woven into the very fabric of their faith. The story of deliverance was not yet complete, for what lay ahead was a revelation of God's ultimate redemption plan. And it came to pass, as Jacob beheld the treasure that his sons had brought from Egypt, that his heart was overwhelmed with astonishment and joy. My soul is indeed alive, for my son, Joseph, lives. He cried, tears flowing freely down his aged cheeks. He longed to embrace Joseph once more, his heart eager yet heavy with the years of pain and loss that had marked his life. Now, amidst the rejoicing, Joseph's brothers, filled with a mixture of relief and wonder, shared with their father all that had transpired in Egypt. They told him of the high position Joseph held, ruler over all the land, and of how he had spared them from the peril of famine. Indeed, the famine will continue, but your son has devised a way for us to dwell in safety, said Judah, his words carrying both assurance and a plea for understanding. He has urged us to bring you to Egypt, that you may live in his presence, for he has abundant provisions. Hesitation gripped Jacob, his heart torn between the joy of reunion and the fear of leaving Canaan, the land promised to his ancestors. shall I indeed go to Egypt? He pondered, wrestling with the remnants of doubt. Yet deep within him, a flicker of faith stirred, for he remembered the covenant that the Lord had made with his forefathers. That night, as he lay upon his bed, his spirit restless, God spoke to him in a vision, "Jacob, Jacob." The voice resonated through the chambers of his soul, gentle yet insistent. "I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make of you a great nation there. I will go down with you, and I will also bring you up again." Genesis 46 verses 2-4. A surge of peace enveloped Jacob as the truth of God's promise washed over him, dispelling his fears. In the dawning light, he rose, invigorated with purpose. The time had come for their family to begin this new chapter. The very destiny of Israel was at stake. With determination, he gathered his sons. "Prepare the carts," he commanded, "for we shall go to Egypt, where my son, Joseph, awaits." And thus, they set out, moving toward a land foreign yet ordained by the Almighty. As they traveled, the landscape shifted before their eyes, fields that ripened beyond the sight of Canaan, mountains that loomed high against the horizon, and rivers that sparkled like promises fulfilled. Each mile brought a palpable sense of tension, anticipation hanging in the air, as if creation itself awaited the unfolding of God's divine plan. Meanwhile, in Egypt, Joseph awaited his family with an earnest heart. He prepared a feast that he might celebrate the restoration of what had been broken. "Let them come near and be welcomed, for the time of reconciliation has arrived," he instructed those who served him. When they finally stood before him, Jacob's aged eyes widened at the sight of his son, a man transformed. The years apart fell away as father and son embraced, weeping tears of joy, healing layers of hurt and loss. "Now I can die in peace," Jacob declared, for he had seen the fruit of God's faithfulness. And in that moment, the spirit of their family was drawn together once more, illuminated by the light of God's grace. As the days turned into weeks, the family settled in the land of Goshen. They flourished and multiplied, and the dreams Joseph had interpreted in his youth began to take form. But while joy filled their hearts, shadows loomed in the distance. For though their family was safeguarded, the Egyptian Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and the people of the land would soon forget the allegiance owed to Joseph's kin. Little did they grasp this was part of the unfolding saga in God's divine plan. A time of trial awaited them, an era that would shape their identities and forge their nation through adversity, and thus, the tale of Israel continued to weave through the hands of time, calling to mind the resounding truth: God's purposes, though hidden in moments of brokenness, are far more magnificent than the trials we face. What lay ahead was more than survival, it was a testament of faith, a foreshadowing of the deliverer yet to come. The collective heartbeat of a nation awaited its moment, a chorus of lives intertwined in the grand design of God's sovereign love, a revelation that would echo into eternity. And it came to pass, as the sun rose over the land of Goshen, that Jacob beheld the vastness of Egypt with a heart both grateful and troubled. His family flourished in this new existence, surrounded by the richness of provisions and a warmth of reunion, yet deep within him lingered a foreboding whisper of the trials to come. Joseph, now a man of authority, governed wisely, ensuring that the remnants of famine did not wither the lives of his kin or the Egyptians. Yet among the Egyptians, there were murmurs of change, shadows lengthened upon the horizon as a new pharaoh rose to power who knew not Joseph nor the bond forged in the past. Jacob sensed the winds shifting, the tide turning away from hospitality towards uncertainty. One evening, as the stars began to twinkle above, Joseph invited his brothers to dine with him. He sought to strengthen their bond, understanding that unity would be crucial in the days ahead. "Brothers," he said, raising his cup, "let us remember the grace that brought us here, for we are a family made whole again. Let our hearts rest secure in God's promise." As they feasted, laughter filled the air, yet beneath the mirth lay a tension, each brother conscious of the fragility of their standing in this foreign land. Reuben, the firstborn, glanced at Joseph. What if the Pharaoh should turn? Should he see us as a burden upon the nation? Joseph looked intently at him, his eyes reflecting both wisdom and sorrow. "Fear not, for our God goes before us. Our presence here fulfills his promise." Just as he protected our father, so shall he protect us." But little did they know, the workings of darkness loomed, and the heart of Pharaoh would soon grow suspicious. The Egyptians began to perceive these prosperous strangers as a threat rather than allies, and with whispers of the past resurrecting fears of foreign tribes, rumors began to sow seeds of enmity among them. Days turned to weeks, and Joseph, with care and vigilance, approached Pharaoh. "O king, my brothers have come to sojourn among us. They are shepherds, for their flocks have thrived in the lands of Canaan." Yet Pharaoh's eyes darkened. "Why should I trust them? What if their fortune shall lead them to desire more?" His heart was hardened, and the love once bestowed by Joseph did not extend to his kin. As news spread, the Israelites began to feel the cooling of Pharaoh's favor. They were given land, yet with each passing day, burdens were placed heavier upon their backs. Tasks of labor became grueling, and fear gripped the hearts of those who had come seeking refuge. During these trials, Jacob sought the Lord in prayer, anguished over the plight of his family. "O God of my fathers, have you brought us here to perish? We came under your promise, yet our lives are filled with toil and sorrow." And in the stillness of the night, the Lord spoke unto Jacob in a dream. "Fear not, for I am with you. Though your descendants shall suffer, I shall remember my covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and you. From this hardship, I shall bring forth a great nation." Awakening from the vision, Jacob understood, even in the depths of despair, divine purpose was at work. The seeds of a powerful nation were being planted through the trials they faced. And thus, the journey of Israel continued, shaped by the hands of God amid rising darkness. The greatest tests would forge the most profound blessings, preparing them for the deliverer who was to come. Unbeknownst to the Israelites, their hardships were merely the beginning of a grand story, a narrative of redemption and divine intervention that would echo through generations. But what awaited them beyond suffering was a resounding promise. The time would come when the Lord would call them out of bondage into glory, a testament to his unfailing love and sovereign plan. And it came to pass that the days of hardship weighed heavily upon the children of Israel. Their tasks grew ever more burdensome, and the glories of the land that received them now felt like an iron yoke upon their necks. Pharaoh's heart had solidified like stone, consumed by fear of their growing numbers, and he commanded that the Israelites be subjected to rigorous labor, building treasure cities to fortify his throne. In the stillness of their night, the cries of the oppressed would rise to heaven. "How long, O Lord?" They lamented silently as their hope seemed but embers fading into darkness. Among them was Jacob, who, now aged and bearded like the autumn vine, summoned strength not from his body but from the promise of God. With fervent conviction, he called his sons before him. "Come, my sons," he said, his voice quaking not from age but from the depth of his yearning. "We must pray unto the God of our forefathers. Let us remember his mighty hand that parted seas and resurrected life from ashes. Though we tread upon thorns, his faithfulness still reigns." With bowed heads, they joined their father, the echoes of their prayers curling upwards like sweet incense. Little did they know, their cries had pierced the heavens, drawing the attention of the Almighty. And God, who never slumbers nor sleeps, looked down upon the anguish of his people. Even in the darkness, I am near, he promised within the silent chambers of divine counsel. Behold, a deliverer shall raise up, and through him, I shall show my power. In that same time, the chief taskmasters of Egypt, whom Pharaoh appointed over the weary Israelites, devised cruel measures to keep them subdued. They regarded the Israelites with disdain, stirring the hearts of the Egyptians against them. "These people seek to outnumber us, we must oppress them greater, lest they rise and overpower our land," they whispered among themselves, igniting fear in the hearts of their kin. Reuben, seeing the plight of his brethren, spoke boldly to the others. "We must not let despair grip our hearts. Remember the promises handed down from our forefathers. Just as the Lord faithfully guided our paths, he will not forsake us now." Yet, the tension in the land thickened, straining the ties of brotherhood within the fortress of Egyptian hatred. Ephraim felt the fear wrapping around his heart, but what if we are destroyed before we see his hand move on our behalf? At that moment, as if ignited by the faith of their father, a vision of a burning bush blazed before Moses, shepherd in Midian, chosen by God for a task great and terrible. The Lord called to him from the flames, "Moses, drawn forth from the waters, you shall go back to deliver my people from the yoke of bondage. Speak to Pharaoh on my behalf, let my people go." Moses trembled before the Lord, "But who am I that I should go? What if he does not listen?" And God, fortifying him with divine assurance, said, "You will tell them that I am has sent you, for I will harden Pharaoh's heart that I may do wonders upon the earth." As Moses realized the enormity of his calling, a flicker of hope reignited among those yet in bondage, for God's plan was set into motion. He would not leave his people in despair, he would raise a deliverer amidst their trials, leading them from darkness into his marvelous light. Yet, the question lingered as clouds thickened around them: would they endure the trials ahead, or would they falter in their faith? Glory awaited them, shimmering just beyond the veil of suffering, where God's sovereign plan was poised to unfold. And it came to pass that Moses, trembling but emboldened by the call of the Almighty, prepared his heart for the journey that lay ahead. The sun turned crimson as it dipped beyond the horizon, casting shadows of uncertainty upon the path he would tread. "Lord, how shall I convey your words to the heart of Pharaoh?" Moses pleaded, the weight of his burden heavy upon him. The Lord responded with grace, "You shall speak what I command you. I will be with your mouth, teaching you what you shall say. Fear not, for I have equipped you with signs and wonders that shall speak of my power." And thus, Moses felt a stirring within his spirit, a reassurance that the God who called him would indeed empower him. Meanwhile, in the land of bondage, Jacob spoke to his sons of old tales woven through the fabric of their history. "Remember, brothers, how the Lord promised Abraham that his descendants would inherit lands beyond mere words. For we are a people blessed, and though we linger in the shadows, the dawn of deliverance is at hand." His words breathed an ember of hope amongst them, filling their hearts with a longing for the promise that slumbered beyond their suffering. Benjamin, the youngest, whispered with childlike trust, "Will there be a day when we are free to dance upon our land?" Thus, the days turned as plagues upon the very spirit of Egypt, and as their burdens increased, so did the cries of the Israelites rise before God. In the quiet of the night, their lamentation ascended like a sweet aroma upon the altar of heaven, where the voice of the Lord echoed with compassion, "I have heard their groanings, I will fulfill my covenant with them." Pharaoh, meanwhile, continued to harden his heart, unaware of the divine confrontation awaiting him. It was not the wise counsel of his advisers that he heeded, but rather the stubborn pride that gripped his soul. Lest his throne be questioned, he tightened the shackles upon the Israelites, unaware that debasing the chosen of God stirred the very wrath of heaven. The day then arrived when Moses, with Aaron at his side, stood before Pharaoh, their hearts pounding with the weight of destiny. "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." Pharaoh scoffed, his countenance filled with disdain. "Who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice? I know not the Lord, and neither will I let Israel go." His words echoed through the hallowed halls, and for a moment, fear crept into the hearts of Moses and Aaron. Yet God's words remained like a beacon, urging them onward. Moses replied, "The God of the Hebrews has met with us. If you refuse to let his people go, we shall behold wonders that will force your hand." And so it was, the nexus of divine confrontation found its ground, the forces of heaven against the stubborn pride of man. As the sun set behind the pyramids, the chaos brewing within Pharaoh began to crack, for creation itself would soon rise to testify of God's sovereign plan. In the hearts of the Israelites, anticipation awakened, for the promise lay just beyond the veil of trials. But how will this end? They pondered, as they clung to the promise of grace. Indeed, God was about to unveil the depths of his mighty hand, weaving the tapestry of their redemption through pain, setting the stage for his glorious revelation. Unbeknownst to Pharaoh, the Lord had set his heart to show forth his wonders, revealing a truth that would echo through generations: the path of suffering reveals the splendor of God's salvation. And it came to pass that after Moses had spoken boldly before Pharaoh, a heavy silence reigned in the chambers of the king. Undeterred, Moses stood firm, for the Lord had filled him with the assurance of divine purpose. "Let my people go," he proclaimed once more, his voice unwavering amidst the tense atmosphere. "For they shall serve the Lord their God, and he desires to meet them in the wilderness." Pharaoh, draped in royal splendor, glared at Moses, his heart hardened like the stone beneath the weight of a great oppression. "You speak as if you know the ways of my kingdom, yet you are but a shepherd of the desert. Why should I heed the voice of a God I do not know?" But the air thickened with the unseen presence of the Almighty, who was about to unleash the unfathomable might of his deliverance. The Lord instructed Moses, saying, "Behold, I will send signs that will strike your heart and reveal my power." Then Moses lifted his staff, and as he did, the ground trembled with a fearsome expectancy. The first sign was the turning of the waters of the Nile to blood, and a great cry arose from the Egyptians, as the lifeblood of their land was tainted. Fish perished, the stench rose up to heaven, and still, Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he refused to relent. Days passed, and with each new calamity frogs, gnats, and flies the message of Moses became clearer, yet the heart of Pharaoh grew more resolute. "Who is the Lord?" he scoffed, mocking the very signs that called him to humility before the Almighty. "I will not be moved by shadows and illusions." And in the homes of the Israelites, the echo of Moses's voice brought a mixture of fear and hope. Some feared the wrath of Pharaoh would grow bolder, while others held tightly to the covenant promise bestowed upon their father Abraham. "Our deliverer has come," some whispered, "and though darkness gathers, deliverance shall follow." As each sign unfolded, revealing the depths of Pharaoh's stubbornness, Moses sought solace and wisdom in the Lord's presence. "What must I do, Lord? If his heart remains hardened, how shall your people be freed?" And the Lord answered him with patience, "There shall be a plague upon the cattle, a sign of my judgment against the gods of Egypt. This too will reveal the limits of their might. But know this, in the midst of judgment lies the promise of salvation." Thus, the heavens echoed with the call to wonder, as the livestock of Egypt fell dead in the fields, yet the cattle of the Israelites remained untouched. The disparity formed a greater divide, one visible to all who had eyes to see, yet Pharaoh's heart remained unyielded. The tension grew like a storm upon the horizon, a brewing reckoning that would soon engulf Egypt. In the quiet twilight, the Israelites gathered, speaking in hushed tones of their sacred hope, longing for deliverance from the land of their affliction, hearts aflame with the prospect of impending freedom. Then, the Lord spoke once more to Moses, revealing his plan with clarity. "When the final plague comes, it shall be a great revelation of my power. For I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn, and thus, the cry will be so great that Pharaoh himself will let you go." In that chilling and holy moment, Moses understood the weight of God's sovereign will. The path was being laid for their exodus, but it would come at a tremendous cost. The promise of their liberation was intricately woven with the darkness of judgment, a divine tapestry that would ultimately unveil the great and glorious acts of his salvation. Little did they know that amid their suffering, the stage was being set for the ultimate confrontation between heaven and earth, a testament of faith against the stubborn pride of man. They began to wonder, in a world filled with suffering, could it be that the echoes of their cries would soon lead to the chorus of their liberation? For God's sovereign plan transcends all understanding, already beckoning toward a broader deliverance through strife and judgment. And it came to pass, as the time approached for the fulfillment of God's promise to the children of Israel, the atmosphere in Egypt thickened with anticipation and dread. The looming shadow of judgment lay heavy upon the land, trembling like the strings of a mighty bow drawn back, ready to release a revelation that would echo through history. The Lord, who had walked with his people through the valleys of despair, prepared to unveil his splendor in a climactic act of deliverance. Moses stood before the Israelites, a vessel of the divine, bearing messages of hope amid despair. "Hear me, people of God," he proclaimed, his voice ringing with urgency. "Tonight, we shall prepare for the Lord's Passover. Each household must select a lamb without blemish, and as dusk settles, its blood shall be painted upon your doorposts as a sign of protection. When the Lord passes through the land to strike down the firstborn, he shall see the blood and pass over you. No plague shall befall you, for you are marked by his grace." The people trembled, yet there arose among them a stir of belief. Families rallied their strength, diligently gathering lambs and herbs, a collective act that signified their desperate reliance on God's promise. Each heart, once burdened by oppression, began to pulse with the flicker of newfound hope. They understood their suffering had prepared the ground for divine intervention. As night fell, and the full moon bathed the land in silver light, the Israelites gathered to partake of the meal. Their hearts raced as they roasted the lambs, the smoke rising sweetly, a fragrant offering unto Yahweh, filled with expectation. "This is a night of remembrance," Moses reminded them. "For tonight, our God shall deliver us from bondage." Across Egypt, a different tension hung thick in the air. The firstborn of every household, the pride and joy of families, rested uneasily, as the specter of impending doom loomed. In the far reaches of the land, Pharaoh lay oblivious, clinging to his hardened heart, casting aside the warnings of an ensuing reckoning. "It is but a passing storm," he dismissed the words of Moses. Yet the heavens had other designs. As the last rays of daylight faded, the silence cracked open under the weight of the Almighty's decree. Midnight approached, and the Lord's presence enveloped Egypt like a mantle of awe. Suddenly, the cry rang out, a wail of unimaginable grief. Every firstborn, from the throne of Pharaoh to the captive in the dungeon, felt the sting of impending judgment. The land would now bear witness to the lengths of God's mercy juxtaposed against the severity of his justice. Across the homes of the Israelites, blissfully unaware of the calamity surrounding them, every family gathered joyfully around tables laden with food. Setting aside their fears, they celebrated their deliverance in faith. The blood of the Lamb represented not only physical protection but a foreshadowing of redemption. "The Lord is our refuge, our strength," sang some amongst hushed yet fervent whispers. Pharaoh, upon hearing the wailing of anguish spilling into the night, rose filled with rage and despair. "Moses! Get out!" he bellowed, the fear that gripped his heart severed the chains of denial. In that moment, he realized the power of the God he had scorned, and the tide of oppression turned as the Egyptians implored the Israelites to leave. "Go!" his officials cried, "Take your flocks and herds, and bless us." And thus, their departure was born out of anguish and hope interwoven, a culmination of God's promises unfolding through sacred history. The Israelites emerged from the darkness of despair, stepping boldly into the dawn of liberation, carrying with them the spoils of Egypt, gold, silver, and the blessings of God. With his heart filled with gratitude and awe, Moses led the people through the wilderness, where God's visible presence guided them, a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. "Behold, our God has delivered us," he declared, and the people erupted in praise. Songs of joy flowed from their lips, echoing against the mountains as they danced. Through the desert, but as they ventured forth, the shadow of fear loomed once more as Pharaoh, hardened and enraged, pursued them with a vengeful army. The Israelites, caught between the Red Sea and the approaching wrath of their former captors, faltered. "Why have you brought us here to die?" they cried out in despair. Yet, even amid their doubt, God spoke through Moses, "Fear not. Stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord." Then came the divine miracle. At the sound of Moses' cry, the waters parted, creating a pathway of escape through the sea, a way for his chosen to pass, untouched by the waters that surrounded them. "Walk forward," he commanded, and they moved as one, the trust of generations echoing through the steps of faith. In a climactic moment, as the last of God's people crossed safely to the shore, the waters returned, swallowing the pursuing army of Pharaoh. The cries of the oppressors turned to silence, a tangible testament to God's unfailing provision for his own. And as the dawn broke upon the horizon, the Israelites turned back to the scene of the deliverance, awe-stricken by the might of their God. Moses led them in a song of triumph. "I will sing unto the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously." For the victory over their oppressors marked not only the end of their bondage but the dawn of a future shaped by hope, a nation born from trials, destined for promise. The legacy of their deliverance would ripple through the annals of time, the story of blood and hope ascending to the heavens, where the heart of God beats in perfect harmony with his people. The God who delivers is the God who saves, the path of suffering fulfilled through his magnificent promises revealed. Therefore, As they journeyed toward the land promised to their forefathers, the Israelites carried the indelible mark of divine grace, one that would be a testimony for generations. As the radiant sun rose, illuminating their path towards freedom, the Israelites rejoiced, for what lay ahead was not just survival, but a flourishing under the gentle embrace of their sovereign God, who had woven their stories through trials into the ultimate triumph. Thus, the legacy of faith began anew, echoing the unfathomable depths of God's unwavering love and sovereign plans, a testament to his pursuit of a people destined for deliverance. Now, dear friends, behold the incredible assurance of God's might and love in your own journey. If you desire to know more of his transformative stories and how they can illuminate your faith, you need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth. Leave a like now to help illuminate his glory through the algorithms of this world. I invite you to comment your reflections. Let the testimonies of how God's Word has transformed your life flow forth. And don't wait even one more second. Share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Together, let us proclaim his wondrous deeds and spread his message of hope.